Hey, it's Robert Clickybeard, the host of the Commercial Landscaper podcast. These podcasts challenge you to grow as a leader, to stretch yourself beyond your comfort zone, and to 10x your company. I really encourage you to enjoy the show, share it with teammates, fellow business owners, and subscribe. That helps us grow our community. Hi, this is Robert Clickybeard with the Commercial Landscaper podcast. Really excited to be joined by Noe. How do you pronounce your last name?
Loarca.
Loarca. Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you again.
So, tell our audience a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I started the company about 13 years ago. We're going just a little over 13. We're based here in Arlington, Virginia, right outside of, literally stone's throw away from the Pentagon is what I always say. DC is our market. My background, I did not work for a landscaping company previously, so started this without knowing much. Like a lot of other landscapers, but married, one kid, 6 years old, going on 16 years of marriage. I'm an open book, so you can ask anything, and I'd love to tell you all about it.
Okay, cool. And then what do you enjoy most about the business?
So what do I enjoy the most? Probably the fact that I get to see a lot of people elevate themselves. We're very people oriented. It's part of our culture, and so we have a lot of folks that started off, cutting grass. They're on a weed whacker. The guy that I've got as my production manager now, that's exactly how he started. My operations manager was somebody who started out just answering phones for me. So I love to be able to see people grow, and that's absolutely my favorite part.
Cool. No, I love that. And what are you experiencing as being a biggest challenge to growth right now?
Right now, I'm the bottleneck for sales. So I'm extremely interested in trying to see, how we can offload that. Funny enough that when you and I set the appointment, I didn't have a business developer. We have a business developer that is starting this week.
Cool.
But my biggest worry is that I won't set her up for success because we don't have a great sales system. If I've always been the salesperson. And initially, we are, if I'm the one doing it, but I'm also running a business and helping with other things, I'd say I'm a part-time salesperson. So that doesn't mean I have a great system. So finally having somebody that's going to be dedicated full-time to it, we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
I will pray and work hard to make sure that it goes well.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, it is a challenge I see over and over. Whether it be a business developer or whether it be another key position where people will get hired into a company because there's a need there, but unfortunately they don't necessarily get the best onboarding or best training going into that position, and then the owner will sit back in 3, 4, 5 months and figure out, well, why is this person not successful? And a lot of the time it's to do, unfortunately, with the owner or the person hiring them.
I agree 100%, and that's exactly my thing. We've been around enough to fail at positions, and every time I look back and I say it was something where I didn't set them up for success, and so it's one of the things I'm working on right now.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Now, one of the things we talking about business development, and we could go down that whole journey, but I know past conversations we talked about your networking, putting yourself out there, and obviously that's pretty tough when you're trying to balance business, growing the business, dealing with family as well. So, but how do you? What's your sort of tricks around the networking piece?
Yeah. So with networking, it's hard to pinpoint just a trick. A lot of it is I learned because I started out going into BNI, Business Network International. People go, they have lunch or breakfast meetings, and getting to go to different ones. I'm one of those people that if I walk into a room and I don't really know anybody, it can be really hard for me to open up to people. And sometimes you just look like that person that's either shy or just doesn't want to talk to anybody. But with BNI, it helped me a lot in terms of coming out and enforcing, hey, what do you do? What do you do for work? And you get to ask questions, and you see people that don't know anybody get to open themselves up. And so we realize we're on that other side. So when I go into places now, it doesn't matter. You smile, just, hey, how are you doing? And that simple, just asking people how they're doing, you'd be surprised at how many people open themselves up just there. and then we can lead in with conversations. It's funny because there's the How to Win Friends and Influence People book, right? I read that, and everything that he was saying to do are things that I already do, and so it's kind of build confidence a little bit that when I go out and it's you remember people, and just a couple weeks ago we had a conference, and they had a happy hour, pre-conference happy hour. I don't even drink, but I still wanted to go out and just build those relationships and talking with people. And you know, I if you can remember a single detail about somebody that they told you in a previous conversation, that's huge. I had somebody tell me about her daughter playing volleyball, but she has to drive 40 minutes away every time and practices 4 times a week. And when you go in and you say, "Hey, how's your daughter doing? Is she improving the way that you had hoped that she would be in that thing?" People go, "Wow, he actually really cared," and I do care, but I think maybe that's a little bit different from a lot of other people. They just go, "Is it work related?" Hey, how is that property doing? Are there is the property manager there happy? And I think it sets us a little bit apart if we can ask questions that aren't just work related, and you can remember more about them and builds that relationship.
Right. No, I agree 100% that not only building the relationship, but that trusted relationship. How, I'll give you an example. I actually had this conversation yesterday. My brother's in town. He's going to a conference. He's got a sole purpose of going to raise some funds. And I think there's over 2,000 people at the conference, but you've got such a short window of time. I think it's like a 2.5 day event. You've got 2,000 people. How do you sort of almost ensure you or prevent conversations that don't go anywhere?
Know if you're going to be able to avoid it. But sometimes you can cut off conversations a little bit faster. I won't say you're going to be in the middle of a conversation and say, "Oh, great, nice to meet you, head out." But you look around and you can say 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, and especially one of the things that works out really well for me is getting into groups. That way, you're able to touch, I guess, converse with more people at the same time and get to get your story out there. Get to if you're trying to sell something, but you could again find out more, explain, tell other folks about yourself a little bit more, and especially if you're doing it in those groups. And so I say group here. If you feel like it's not going anywhere, it's not as beneficial, and maybe you're looking to meet with certain key people, why not do it when with another group? So spend a few minutes there. I was actually at the Grow conference in February, and I mean it was a packed area in outside the bar. I don't even drink, but apparently I'm at the bars all the time. But so going there and it was packed, but hang out with a few people, then switch up, go meet with a few other people. And I think especially when you're in those groups, it helps instead of that one-on-one. And one-on-one is never wrong, but that's where maybe from one of those groups you pull somebody aside and say, "Hey, do you mind if I want to talk to you a little bit more individually?" But that's the best way to do it is set up a time. When we
Mm.
do or anything for networking, we're always trying to that's not where you're going to get that individual that time where you're going to be able to sell whatever you're selling or be able to find out the information that you need. But there you at least you're trying to meet people so that you can set that follow-up, I guess, appointment.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Makes sense. Um, how much work should people do before they go to an event or a networking or conference? Because uh, not doesn't happen all the time, but certainly a lot of conferences I go to, you get a list of people who are attendees there, and you could do a little bit pre-research done.
I personally think that's great if you can. Unfortunately, a lot of the events that I go to, we don't always have that. But I mean, if you can, yeah, absolutely. Maybe send out an email. There's been a lot of occasions where we'll send out an email beforehand for an expo or whatever that where we have a booth, and we would say, we're going to be here. If you have a little bit of time in between one of the classes, we'd love to get together with you for coffee. If you can set it some time. The returns on that can be minimal, but again, what you're trying to do is just set up that appointment. But at least maybe your name is out there finally. So when you do meet them again at the bar or at lunch or something, they go, "Oh yeah, you know what? I think we reached out to you, or at least your name." Maybe they'll say, "Oh, I think we got an email from you guys." And so then again, it's almost like brand recognition. So they get an idea of who you are, and then follow up. But unfortunately, we don't. Like I said, we don't have a lot of that of getting people a list of folks. But when it does, we've done that,
Okay.
and you can prepare for a certain extent of I want these kinds of people, but you're not always going to have that.
Yep, I agree. How about you're busy having conversations. You've got in a group. You've taken mental notes of potential people that would be good for you to follow up with. Yeah, how do you log that information? Because it's tough for you to pull out your laptop and type something into like a CRM or something. But you might go from back to back conversations and meet some 3 or 4 key people, but
Yep.
unless you're taking some type of notes down, it's easy for you to forget.
I'll be honest with you. I think that's a great question. What I do, and it works out really well for me, is especially nowadays with people with iPhones, it's even easier. But pull up the phone. You say, "Well, here, let's share information to each other." You do that tap, it sends it, and you get their information. They get your information, and I send a text number and a text, and I go, "Hey, just want to follow up. I can't. Looking forward to speaking with you." And I think that's actually a great example because we were at that happy hour for the pre-expo, I brought business cards and I left them in the car, and I go, you know what? I think I'd rather not use the business cards. I would rather get their phone number, especially because especially with property managers, a lot of it's office numbers. I want to get a text where I can text them and say, hey, you got my number. We'll follow up to talk about so and so. And so I send that to them. So that way it's a reminder to them and it's a reminder to me, because think about how many business cards they're getting at these things. But if you have your phone number saved in their phone, so much easier. And it doesn't have to be an iPhone. You can, again, just getting their number from the Galaxy or whatever, being able to text it. Hey, here's my information. And just a reminder, I'm going to reach out again later this week about talking about this, and that. So you're both on the same page. That way it creates that connection. Otherwise, you come from this networking event where they met with 100 other people at least, and they go, who is this guy? You have the business card, and there's no way for them to remember you. Why not the person that got my number texted me? And especially if it's an iPhone, and again, you can do the contact card. I send them my contact card. So there's a picture and everything included.
Right. Okay. I like that. How about you maybe you've gone along to an event, you've gone with some of your colleagues there. What's your tactics around? Maybe you brought along 2 or 3 of your team members to go to some event like a BOMA lunch or IFMA lunch. Do you have any type of strategies around how to?
Be sitting with me.
Okay,
it's
yeah,
it's one of those things. I get really disappointed for other companies or folks, especially educational events. And I mean, it could be as simple as not just trying to get business, but I mean, when we were at NALP and they have the breakfast with champions, and they have these topics that you're going to talk about, or even for lunches, and you get 4 people from the same company at the same table, and you go, how are you guys going to really get information from other people, or how are you going to convey your information so we could all learn? I mean, that's one of the biggest things, and I see it over and over again. And each to his or her own, but it's not beneficial for anybody. So when we go, it's you're going to that table, I'm going to go to this table, you're going to that table, right? And so we split up, and it has to be, I won't say we have a common theme, and maybe that's something we could work on a little bit more of, hey, what is our goal to come out of this? What kind of information are we going to get out of this? That'd probably be one thing that I think we can improve on, right? We're not perfect, but it's definitely, but that I would say that have a goal. What are you trying to get out of this lunch, or what are you trying to get out of this breakfast, or whatever it may be, but don't sit together. I think that's the biggest waste of time and space that we could do when every time I go anywhere and I see that.
Let's take a minute to thank our sponsors. Urcher is a life Brand born from grit, founded by Zach Strausser. The mission is clear: to raise $1 million for the trades by supporting vocational training across North America. Urcher makes tough, smart gear built for landscaping and snow professionals who work hard outside every day in all conditions. Their apparel puts safety first, helps crews look sharp, and honors the pride in their craft. Every purchase has purpose, fueling training programs and building a resilient workforce. Urcher isn't just workwear, it's a culture of respect, resilience, and results. When you contact Urcher, mention Wilson 360 and Zach and his team will take well care of you. How about you go to an event, you pick up 6 or 8 names from the event, or the pretty good connections you've made. You reach out to them, whether it be by text or phone, crickets. Can you back? What's your? Do you have like some type of a system where you have multiple touches, or what does that look like?
So we have virtual assistants, and they, when we come back, we have again have a certain. I think it was, and it's funny you said 6 or 8. I was going to say that might be the number that we were using, but no, it's probably maybe 20 leads that were like, hey, these are really great leads. They're interested in a bid right now. We want to follow up with them. I gave it to my virtual assistant and had her uh, follow up with email, follow up by text, follow up calling to try to see if she could get anything to set an appointment for me. If that wasn't the case, then the following week, I was going to be going out and visiting them physically. And it's that person to person, and especially a lot of the times where their office is, or it's a property manager that's for a condominium, or an HOA HOA office. You go in, you already know who they are, and sometimes they have these the people at the front desk that are set there to pretty much keep us away. And go in, hey, but I spoke with her at this and this, and so when they know that they were already at that lunch or they were there at that expo, then yeah, then it gives a little bit more credibility, so they're willing to let you go. But if it's just, oh, I'm looking for so and so because it's a name on a business card, that doesn't help. But yeah, no, they were there. We talked about this, and that, and so then when you can share some of that information, it gives you again just that credibility, and so you can get better follow ups that way. And I will say one of the things that has worked out for us, and I've literally looked at the numbers, the qualification to actually getting a bid in goes exponentially higher when we go and visit them in person. Calling and emailing only does so much, but that's what everybody else does. What differentiates us is that we go and we follow up and actually get to speak with them.
No. Yeah, I always used to encourage face-to-face meetings, whether it be proposals, whether it be, maintenance bids. At what point do you give up? Is it after 8? Is it 7? Do you
You may have
never
to
give up?
you may have to explain that giving up part. I don't know that very well. So, I'd say honestly, for me, I'd never give up, and the reason is because you never know when that might turn around to something. We have
Mm,
property managers that they didn't something didn't work out, and we were 3 years in. I know a lot of other people that would have just given up, and they would have said, "Nah, they're not really interested." But then 3 years later, here we are. We've got that contract because we just kept going. We kept going, and I've got one actually. It's a perfect example. Met him at happy hours and several different happy hours. He was in a property in a condominium in DC that wasn't our ideal client. They're in a small condominium where it takes a lot of traffic. We don't service that area, but we kept in touch and still followed up. And hey, how's it going? Invited him to when we had a company party get together. Still invited him. Next thing you know, he calls me and he goes, "Hey, do you service Falls Church?" We do actually. That's where what's going on? Well, I just moved to a new property and landscaping contracts 100 grand. Are you interested? Right down the street from our shop. But because we kept those touch points and kept following up, I mean it's that's why I don't know what giving up is. That's really hard for me to understand. And again, you never know. Maybe they might have a really great connection, be able to connect you with somebody else. It's just follow ups and keeping in touch. It's really really important. And I think that's been one of the best ways that we've grown our business.
no, no, great answer. Love it. How about you talked about potentially four of you going to an event, and you've done a good job. You've directed your team well to split up amongst the group of attendees there. But what does it look like in terms of like their elevator pitch or what they do? Do you have some type of consistent message?
Yeah.
They all saying the same thing. What does that look like?
So that's probably where I was saying that we could improve probably a little bit more. But the idea is that we have to know who we are, and that starts from everything that we do, the way that we run our meetings in the week every week, from the way that our mission statements. We now have our mission statement on the wall downstairs. We have our values posted up along not only inside but around the shop, so everybody sees that. And I think when you know who you are, it's easier to convey that. And I could guarantee that everybody on my team knows that we don't really go after apartments. We don't really go after low income housing because that's not our cup of tea. But every single one of our employees, from somebody who's doing the edging for mulching to our account manager to our production manager, knows we tend to be a niche company. We know our niche, I guess, for our customer, and it tends to be high end HOAs, high end condos. So we go in, and when we can talk about why we do that, I don't know if there needs to be an elevator pitch, because the idea is that we're having conversations, getting to know people. And when they get to know you a little bit better, then they go, well, why? What makes you different? And everybody can replicate that. We haven't, again, focused on an elevator pitch, but I think every single one of my employees can tell you who we are and what we do and why we do what we do.
Okay. Yeah, I was a big fan of some finding your sort of unique value proposition. Because everybody can come in and say they'll cut your grass, it's nice and green, nice flowers. But what do you do a little bit different or a little bit over and above everybody else? It's just nice to be able to capture that in one or two sentences. Um, what I mean, networking, as you know, is can be around going to events. It could be around going to conferences or trade events or something. But I think once you establish what that unique customer looks like in terms of demographics, where you hang out, what are other ways that people can think outside the box to meet people that fit that customer profile?
So I may not have the best response for this, but I have my response,
Okay.
and it's sort of goes to like with that customer that I was saying that he was in DC and then moved to another property. You never know who they know and what they may be able to do for you. I had lunch just last week with two people who they're office assistants for a property management company, and a lot of people would have said, "Well, they're not property managers." But it doesn't matter. They gave me the time and interest to be able to have lunch with me. They work for a property management company. Let's go, and I'd love to talk to them. Next thing you know, they're helping me set up a lunch and learn with the VP for the property management company. And so I we can say and we know our ideal customer, but I did tell them, I said, this is what our ideal customer is. But you can tell, I hate to say bottom of the barrel, but you can tell anybody about it. If it's somebody that cleans their offices, great. I would still convey that same information, because you never know when they may be able to tell so and so president, maybe the owner of that property management company, how it works out. And so when we go in and we talk to somebody that's doing business development for a property management company, I still like to ask them, like, what kind of things how do you work in your position? Are you finding HOAs this way? Are you doing this? And so you never know. There may be a little bit of a nugget that they can share with you that we can then use, right? It's I don't think there's anybody that's too low or too high for us to meet, and I'm happy to have lunch with them, coffee. I will say maybe I'll limit time a little bit more for certain people. I honestly, like, maybe we just do coffee. But again, it can lead to greater things, and I'm open to meeting anybody that's an office assistant that maybe cleans their offices, but you never know what kind of information you'll get from them.
No. Yeah, and I think I agree with 100%. I think what I suppose where I took it a little bit further is that I almost look for what's a success factor look like, or going with some type of a goal for uh, that potential prospect I met with, whether it be a connection with somebody else, whether it be a referral, whether it be um, bidding on a small property, but did as much research as possible beforehand, and
Yep.
then look for what would be a win out of this meeting I'm going into.
So
So
it depends on the meeting, right? So that's exactly, and I think there's not a one plan fits all kind of thing, but there's some that again, that property management company is a great example because my goal for that one, and I was very clear with it, we don't do anything with that property management company. We would like to. Now we're going to do a lunch and learn with the VP and some of the office staff. There's another. I had lunch that same. Yeah, it was like I had a lot of lunches last week, and one of them was with another company that we don't do any work for, but to be able to get together with them and say, hey, what is the way that we could start getting more work with you guys? Now those are with companies that we don't already do work for, but if it's one that we do, then it's just, hey, well, do you have any new property managers? Do you have any new properties you guys brought on? Is there anything that you think maybe we're not excelling at? Is there something that you think we could do better? A lot of it just, I think you have to know what do you want to get out of that when you go into it. So I think it is a great question, but unfortunately, I don't have a straight answer that I can replicate around all of those meetings because some of them are it's going to be very catered to that one company or but we definitely should have a plan going into each lunch or coffee meeting to what are we trying to get out of this. And I think I haven't written it down to say what it is, but I know going into it exactly what I want out of it. And 9 times out of 10, I think I do, but it's never asking for it directly. No, very rarely asking for it directly. And we go in and we say, hey, I just want to get to know you guys and maybe tell you guys a little bit about us. And that's where, again, if I go in and say, oh, we're the best at cutting grass, oh, we're the best at pulling weeds, every other company is going to say that. But what about me can be different from the next guy? One, maybe we tell you, hey, well, we're not a private equity company. Maybe that might toot your horn a little bit, or we are absolutely a local company. We're still family owned. There's a few different things that just in those conversations you can share. And you say, well, ideally I would love to be able to get to do this. Is that something that maybe I can find out a little bit more information about without saying, hey, can you give me this, right?
uh, no, I mean I think you answered it pretty well. We used to use things like least LinkedIn or social media just to do a little bit of background to who we're meeting, just
Yeah.
to find out, hey, what company, what position, what are their interests, did they have a family, did they play sports? So going in with that type of information can help to just make them feel at ease fairly quickly. So you can get down to information that is a little bit more business related.
Yeah, I mean, and it can. But I feel like you build that relationship by asking those questions when you're there, and I do
Yeah,
that a lot. I mean, it's
yeah,
we have kids, and being able to be very open. I know some people that they don't want to talk about. I have a friend. She doesn't want to talk about when it's work. She goes, "No, I don't want them to know if I'm married. I don't want them to know this. I don't want like why? Like I mean, again, everybody's different, but I'm an open book. I will tell you about when I meet with customers. I used to tell them like, I have a zoo at home. I have 2 dogs, a cat. I had 5 goldfish, and I've got at the time was a 5-year-old. So they're like being able to share that disarms them a little bit. And
yeah.
then do you have kids? Oh, you've been married. How long have you been married? You mind me asking? And sometimes those are personal questions, but I want it to be a personal relationship because I want them to feel differently about me than they do with anybody else.
Yeah. No, well, you've shared some great knowledge so far. I know we're getting close to the end of wrapping this up here. What would be the best way for people to reach out to you if you have questions about, either networking or sales or just how
Sure.
to organically grow the business?
LinkedIn would be great. I would love to build up LinkedIn a little bit more. I'm starting to post just slightly more, and I love helping other people. Truthfully, so if there's anything that we can do to try to gain knowledge, why not? So please connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay, cool, awesome, good deal. Any final nuggets you want to share with our audience?
Last piece of advice I can give to everybody is if you can go to as many events as possible. Don't look at any event as a waste, especially if it's an educational landscaping event. NLP, Grow, any of those, I think absolutely you can get a lot of wisdom from going to those kinds of things.
Awesome. Cool. Well, appreciate your time today. Nice to meet you, and good luck with your growth journey.
Likewise. Thank you, Robert.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. I hope you're walking away with some great nuggets that you can immediately apply to your business, whether you're in leadership, operations, or you just want to show up every day with that Ironman mindset. Remember, growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens with intentional moves, bold conversations, and surround yourself with the right people. If you found value today, subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with others. And again, don't forget to check out wilson-360.com. We have digital courses from account management, operational excellence, leadership development, or some of the other coaching packages we offer. Anyway, a huge shout out to our sponsors. Thank you very much. And I'll leave with this. Have a pure, dead, brilliant day.